Hello everyone, and welcome to the Writer's Canvas, where we break down tips and tricks to help make your writing immersive and engaging. Today, we're tackling a classic, active versus passive voice. Each has its strengths, and knowing when and how to use them can elevate your storytelling to new heights. So, what's the deal with active and passive voice? At its core, it's all about structuring your sentences based on who's doing what. In active voice, the subject of the sentence performs the action. It's bold, direct, and brings clarity to your writing. For example, the dragon burned the village. The focus here is on the dragon and its fiery destruction. You feel the immediacy, the impact, the motion. It thrusts the readers into the heart of the moment. Now, let's flip that to passive voice. Passive voice places the subject as the receiver of the action. The village was burned by the dragon. The focus now shifts. It's about the village and the aftermath of the event rather than the one causing it. Passive voice adds a layer of detachment, which can evoke mystery, neutrality, or even emotional distance, depending on the context. So when should you use each? As always, it's hard to nail down a single rule because it depends on your writing style, your story, and what you're trying to convey. However, let's break it down a bit further. Active voice is like a spotlight shining directly on the characters and their actions. It's vibrant, clear, and immediately pulls the readers into the scene. This makes it perfect for action-packed moments, fast-paced scenes, or dialogue that needs to snap. For example, the knight swung his sword, slashing through the ogre's defenses. Here, you're right there with the knight, immersed in the moment. Active voice grounds readers in the immediacy of the action, creating a sense of urgency and intensity. Active voice also excels when you need brevity and impact. It trims unnecessary words, delivering the sentence's core message with precision. You'll often see it in thriller novels, action scenes, and character-driven narratives where movement and decision drives the plot forward. But active voice isn't just for fights and chaos. It can also work wonders in emotionally charged moments. Consider a character making a life-changing decision. She gripped the letter, heart pounding, and tore it open. That small moment of agency, her gripping the letter, her heart pounding, creates tension. The reader is right there, feeling every moment. Passive voice, on the other hand, thrives in moments where the action or results take precedence over the actor. It's less about the who and more about the what or the why. This can create an air of mystery, a sense of inevitability, or even foreboding. For example, the ancient prophecy was spoken, foretelling the kingdom's doom. Here, the emphasis isn't on who spoke the prophecy, but on the prophecy itself and its ominous implications. Passive voice allows you to zoom out, focusing on the broader picture or consequences of the action. Passive voice also works well when the actor is unknown, irrelevant, or intentionally obscured. For example, the crown was stolen under the cover of night. Who stole it? That's not the point here. The intrigue lies in the act of the theft and its ramifications. Passive voice is often useful in mysteries, historical novels, and stories where the focus is on the aftermath rather than the action. It's also helpful when describing systemic or large-scale events, where individual actions are less important than the overall effect. The city was rebuilt after the war, its streets lined with memories of what once stood so tall and proud. This phrasing emphasizes the restoration and lingering impact rather than the individual people doing the rebuilding. The real magic happens when you mix the two, creating a dynamic rhythm in your writing. This balance allows you to emphasize key actions while softening or de-emphasizing less critical details. For example, the sorceress summoned a storm, her chants echoing across the cliffs. By morning, the villagers found their crops had drowned and their homes were destroyed. The active voice, the sorceress summoned a storm, draws attention to the sorceress's deliberate actions, while the passive voice their crops had drowned and their homes were destroyed, shifts focus to the aftermath, evoking the devastation left behind. This technique helps you control pacing and tone, spotlighting certain elements while allowing others to recede into the background. Overusing passive voice is one of the biggest mistakes writers face. Hell, I still catch myself slipping into it more often than I'd like to admit. It sneaks into early drafts because it mimics how we naturally process information. We think about what happened before who did it. But too much passive voice can make your writing feel distant, sluggish, and way more wordy than it needs to be. When revising, keep an eye out for was or were, followed by a past participle like the sword was forged by the blacksmith. Phrases like by thee are also a dead giveaway. Most of the time, flipping into active voice makes for a stronger, more immediate sentence. Of course, passive voice isn't all evil. The key is to use it on purpose, not just because it slipped in unnoticed. That said, swinging too hard in the other direction can cause its own problems. If every sentence is short, direct, and aggressively active, your writing can start to feel choppy, robotic, or overly intense. It's like pounding on a drum with the same beat over and over. It gets exhausting. Sometimes throwing in a well-placed passive sentence or a longer, more fluid structure can help smooth things out and vary your pacing. Balance is key. At the end of the day, writing isn't about rigid rules. It's about making intentional choices. Active voice brings clarity and energy, while passive voice has its moments when used deliberately. The trick is to revise with purpose, trust your ear, and experiment until your words flow exactly the way you want them to. That's a wrap on this episode of The Writer's Canvas. I hope this deep dive into active and passive voice has inspired you to take charge of your sentences with confidence. If you had fun or learned something new, don't forget to tap that like button, share it with your fellow wordsmiths, and hit subscribe to keep the inspiration rolling. Got a topic you're dying to see covered? Drop it in the comments below. I'm always up for a good writing challenge. Until next time, keep choosing the right voice for your story, bring your action to the forefront, and craft sentences that captivate. Happy writing!